The golden era of piracy. Who ruled the seas? Only 80 years of history, and 5 of the most powerful pirates. Captain William Kidd was either one of the most famous pirates in world history or one of the most unjustly vilified and prosecuted privateers. Little is known of his youth. He was born on January 22, 1645, in Dundee, Scotland. His father was a sailor who disappeared at sea, although some have claimed that he served as a Puritan minister. By 1689, William Kidd was already a captain and sailed the Caribbean on a French ship that he captured as a privateer's trophy. Privateers were those pirates who were in the public service. At that time, England was engaged in an armed conflict with the French known as King William's War in the American colonies. The crew revolted against Kidd, not wanting to participate in the war. The outcome was that when Kidd went ashore, his pacifist crew hoisted anchors and sailed the ship back home. In 1696, Kidd, sponsored by a number of prominent English officials, gets a new ship adventure with a crew of over 100 men, was armed with 34 guns. For the next 2 years, Captain Kidd plundered merchant ships, amassing looted riches, gold, silk, and precious stones. When he refused to attack a Dutch ship, its gunner William Moore rudely objected to the captain. During the argument, Kidd threw a bucket at the gunner. The blow fractured Moore's skull, and the poor man died the next day. In January 1698, William Kidd made a fatal mistake. He captured a huge ship, the Cadiz merchantman, laden with treasure. But the captain of that ship, Wright, was an Englishman who had bought permission for passage from the French East India Company. The British government wanted to stay on good terms with the Mughal Empire and the East India Company, so they needed a scapegoat. Lord Bellamont promised Captain Kidd a pardon, but he was not going to fulfill his promise. According to the same legends, William Kidd circled around New York and buried all his treasure in the Long Island area. For 200 years, treasure hunters have been searching unsuccessfully for Captain Kidd's treasure, which may never have existed. William Kidd was sent to prison in Boston, where he languished for a year before being sent to England to be tried. On May 8, 1701, Kidd was convicted of the murder of Canon Moore and piracy, despite his claims of innocence. 15 days later, he was hanged from the dock. The rope broke, and Kidd fell into the mud beneath the gallows. He was hanged again, his body tarred, chained, and placed in a steel cage where his skeleton hung for years. Mary Read and Anne Bonny were formidable pirates who held the entire merchant fleet of the Caribbean and Bahamas in terror in the early 18th century. These girls became friends in battle and pirated together for several years. Mary Read was an Englishwoman who had been portrayed as a boy since childhood. She was an illegitimate daughter in a rich family from a poor mother, and her mother passed her off as a boy. Mary went to serve in the army on a Dutch ship. In the crew, Mary pretended to be a man, otherwise it is unlikely she would have been taken aboard. The ship was captured by English pirates, and this turned her biography upside down. Mary was the only passenger who desperately fought off the pirates with guns in her hands. The pirates invited her to join the crew. That's where she met her partner, Anne Bonny. Irish Anne Bonny, the complete opposite of Mary. She is the daughter of a rich lawyer who made a fortune on sugarcane plantations. She was nicknamed Tiger Ann for getting into fights and winning over street boys, and then in a tavern she met a real pirate, Jack Rackham. Together they hijacked ships. They sometimes ended up with huge fortunes. To the pirates, she was Sailor Andreas and always wore men's clothes. The crew did not suspect anything, as Andreas perfectly mastered all kinds of weapons and was not a stranger to men's work. As you remember, the pirates captured the ship where Mary was, and the girl joined the crew. Mary also pretended to be a man, but Anne quickly figured her out. The girls became friends despite the age difference, Mary was 16 years older than Anne, but the friendship caused Captain Jack's frenzied jealousy when he saw his girlfriend spending 24 hours a day with a handsome military man. Anne carefully let her lover in on the secret, and the three of them began living together. The pirates terrified all sailors, and it hurt trade. Eventually, the governor of Jamaica hired the military. The active military was hard to beat, and the pirate ship was captured. The entire crew was sentenced to capital punishment. Only Mary and Anne survived as they were both pregnant. Mary and Anne were imprisoned, and their fate was decided later. Mary became ill in prison and passed away. She was 36 years old. Anne was bought out by her father. He brought her home and she married a local planter. She was only 19 years old. She lived a happy married life and had 10 more children. Bartholomew Roberts is one of the most successful pirates, nicknamed Black Bart. Famous for the fact that for 3 years of his voyage was able to capture and rob about 400 merchant and fishing vessels and received the booty of 32 to 50 million pounds sterling. He even managed to write his own version of the Pirates' Code. Bart Roberts began his maritime career as a sailor on merchant ships. However, his life took a turn in 1718 when his ship was captured by pirates under the command of Howell Davies. Roberts was taken prisoner, but instead of becoming a victim, he joined the pirates. Davis and Roberts quickly found a common language, and among the pirates, the authority of Bart grew literally before their eyes. As a result, in June 1719, after an unsuccessful attack on Prince's Island and the death of Howell Davis in battle, the Corsairs chose Roberts as their new captain by a majority vote. In September 1719, the pirates approached the coast of Bahia province, where they unexpectedly saw a Portuguese flotilla, 42 merchant ships guarded by 2 frigates. However, during the night, one of the smaller vessels was still captured, and then one of the warships was boarded. Black Bart adhered strictly to the charter. He wore, without removing, a gold cross, and in between battles and plunder, he prayed earnestly for himself and his crew. Roberts never drank anything stronger than tea, did not gamble, and stayed away from women. The territory of his active activity knew no boundaries. Suddenly leaving the Caribbean Sea, Roberts could go to the north to Newfoundland, and from there, pre-captured a rich booty, take a course to the shores of West Africa. At different times, under the command of Bartholomew, was from 7 to 20 ships. His subordinate thugs proudly called themselves the House of Lords. In August 1721, Roberts was again off the coast of Africa, where he won his last major victory. His flybusters captured and plundered the Liberian city of Oslo. On February 10, 1722, fortune turned its back on Black Bart. The British warship Swallow tracked the pirate and blew up his ship with buckshot, hitting the captain himself, Mrs. Young, the most powerful female pirate in history. The future pirate queen spent her youth on one of the floating brothels. Qin Shi traded bodies on one of these ships and is rumored to have often used her power to extract state secrets or other valuable information from the brothel's wealthy and powerful clients. At the age of 26, Qin Shi found the man of her life, probably among the clients. His name was Zhen Yi, and he was a pirate, one of the most dangerous sea robbers who held control of most of the waters of southern China. But before their marriage, the clever Qin Shi set a condition. She would be a faithful wife to him, but he would allow her to share power over the fleet with him. After the death of her husband, Mrs. Zheng received the second half of the maritime empire of her husband and became a full mistress of the waters of South China. Under her command were about 400 ships, and the army numbered about 70,000 pirates. Undoubtedly, the woman had a great leadership talent. To cope with a large army of sea robbers, Qin Shi developed its own set of laws, violations of which were punished very severely, up to the death penalty. His prince consort, Mrs. Jin, chose a young lover, Zhang Baozi, his own adopted son. Not everyone liked the presence of such a powerful figure in the sea, and in 1808 the Chinese government tried to destroy the fleet Qinshi. But the pirates defeated the attackers, so they had to go back on fishing boats. Over the years, many people tried to destroy the Red Fleet, from rival piratas to the authorities in Portugal and Britain. Although the pirata fleet weakened, it was never exterminated. The emperor of the Qing state offered Mrs. Zhen to make a peace. She and her pirates leave the brigand life and become decent members of society. In 1810, Mrs. Zhen agreed to move to the side of the authorities, and her husband received an administrative position in the Chinese government. A couple of years later, the couple had a son, and after another 10 years, the pirate again became a widow, having outlived her second husband. After that, she settled in Guangzhou and, contrary to the promise given to the government, opened a brothel for gambling and opium sales. Mrs. Zhen died at the age of 69, having lived to a ripe old age by pirate standards. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, was one of the most famous pirates in history. On his ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, he sailed the seas and became a menace not only to merchant ships but also to warships. It was rumored that Blackbeard's looted riches could rival the treasuries of kings. His pirate career began in 1715 when he was a member of Benjamin Hornigold's crew of pirates. Under his captain, Teach plundered French and Spanish ships in and around the Caribbean and participated in the War of the Spanish Succession. Edward Teach's fearlessness and ruthlessness in a short time raised him in the eyes of Captain Hornigold, who appointed the young flybusterer to command one of the sloops of his flotilla. But shortly after these events, a mutiny broke out on Hornigold's own ship, and the captain was removed from his post. Together with his sloop, he took a course to the Caribbean islands and began to rob ships already under his own flag. Soon, Teach attacked the French ship, Consent, captured it, and renamed it St. Anne's Revenge. The ship became the flagship. Its crew included more than 300 men with many weapons on board. Not surprisingly, Teach easily captured other ships and stole their valuables. Teach's pirates make a real mayhem, attacking every ship they encounter, but to give them credit without killing the crews of the ships. Meanwhile, Edward Teach was gaining more and more fame. There were rumors about his remarkable appearance, the main detail of which was a thick black beard that covered almost all of his face. The pirate carefully took care of it, braided it, and decorated it with ribbons. That's when he got his famous nickname. In 1718, Teach and his fleet established a blockade off the coast of South Carolina. However, after settling his affairs with the locals, he suddenly went to the governor and asked for a royal pardon in exchange for giving up piracy. Blackbeard returned to Piracy later that year, capturing 2 French ships loaded with sugar and cocoa. He then appeared again before the governor of North Carolina and convinced him to declare that one of these ships had simply been abandoned at sea by the crew. This gave Teach the right to appropriate its cargo. It is not known why, but the governor agreed. The governors of the other states didn't like it. Blackbeard, of course, refused to surrender, and a battle ensued between Governor Spotswood's fleet and the pirate ships. The odds were on Teach's side. Besides, the pirate was renowned for his fighting skills. If it came down to hand-to-hand combat, the governor's soldiers wouldn't stand a chance. So they went for a ruse. During a naval battle, Virginian Lieutenant Maynard ordered his soldiers to play dead or hide. Teach fell for the ruse. Deciding that the enemy was defeated, he stepped into his vessel. Here, the dead instantly came to life and attacked him. They put several bullets into Tick and stabbed him about 20 times before he died.